very much like partners. So I'm a vampire, and I save people's phone recordings so they never call me.
But just a second part to that question. Directed to Marina and Denise, did you have any initial skepticism when you first started filming Star Trek, coming from the original series, or continuing after the original series? Did you have any skepticism as where it was going to go?
I mean, in all honesty, when I was given the audition for The Next Generation, I was working on a film called Miracle Mile, and I was very concerned because television, to me, at that point in time, was not something I aspired to be on, to really be honest. It was the 80s, and TV was like the kiss of death. If you were on television, then you had no career. You
had no movie career.
You had no movie career, but you didn't go from series to series. You know, television was in a very different place in the 80s. And I was a young actor going to acting classes and, you know, reading scripts and going to movies every night. And, you know, I was right in the throes of that kind of place in my life. And television was not somewhere I wanted to be. You know, my group of actors, all these young, you know, guys working in Hollywood, it was about being in film, you know, and it was about, or going to New York and doing theater, you know. But so I was very concerned because this was a made for syndication television show. It wasn't even like on NBC or CBS or ABC. It was sort of like,
a second class
this feels like a, you know, a real kind of weird thing to do. And they didn't give me a whole script. None of us got whole scripts. We got, you know, what's called sides, little pieces of things. It was very secretive, but not like now. We didn't sign non-disclosure agreements, but we would have had they had them.
Yeah.
But we could, you know, so they were very, very secretive about releasing any of this. And I just was concerned that they're going to make, you know, Hollywood, it just has no original thinking. Right. They're going to do a remake of Star Trek? Are you kidding me? How the hell are they going to do Star Trek? It's perfect, you know, we're going to get crucified. But I was broke, I was young, I needed a job, and I needed to pay the rent. So, I mean, what choice did I have? And I went in kind of like, okay, what is this? And I remember being on the set of Miracle Mile, and I hid my sides. Right in the makeup room. I didn't want the other actors to see that I was auditioning for Star Trek. I mean, I'm really being honest. Right. And again, I was auditioning for the role of Troy.
I remember hearing.
You know, and they switched us at somewhere, you know, midway. And so I didn't know what the hell this was, this, you know, betazoid, this, you know, empath, this. And she was described very, you know, Icelandic ice queen or something, you know, original. And I said,
Icelandic,
well, what do I? Yeah. What am I playing? What is this thing? You know? And then he said, well, just, you know, she's from Scandinavia. Okay, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, they had no clue. Yeah. They had no clue. And the only reason we were auditioning for each other's roles was because in the breakdown it said that Troy was blonde and Tasha was dark. And that was it. Right? And so we were auditioning for each other's roles to begin with. I didn't have the same experience as Denise because I love television. I love television. I never go to the movies. If I'm not on TV, I'm watching TV. You know, I was one of those kids that the TV was my babysitter when I was a kid, you know, and I remember I've been sat in front of the TV my whole life, and I love it. And now it's great because I think we're in kind of a golden age of television right now. There are so many good shows right now. But to me, I had come to America because like Dwight, the beginning of the first 11 years of my career, I was basically a theatre actress and penniless, you know. And so when this job came up, and we knew we were going to do a year, we were told we're going to do a year, and then we'll see what happens. even if we'd only done a year, that was going to be the best job I ever had in my life. So I was like, where do I sign? You know, in fact, I was so. In Hollywood, you have to negotiate your contract before the last audition, so that when you get the job, you can't then ask for a lot of money. So they get you when you're desperate for the job, right? They're very smart. So when my agent called me before the last audition, which they call the test, when my agent called me before the test, she said, I thought you were a great deal. It wasn't. It was the worst deal. But anyway, she said, I thought you were a great deal. I went, stop. And she went, what? I said, I don't want to know how much money is involved. And she went, what do you mean? I said, if I know how much money is involved, I won't be able to speak at the audition. I was nervous enough as it was. So when I went into the test, Junie Lowry, the casting director, handed me the contract and said, before you go in, you have to sign the contract. And I went, I can't. And she went, no, you don't understand. If you don't sign the contract, you don't go in the room. And I went, but I don't know what it says. And she went, what? I said, I don't know, I don't want to know what it says. And she said, well, how are we going to do this? I said, well, do I have to sign at the bottom of every page? And she went, kind of. And I went, okay, just turn up the bottom of every page. You live and learn, you know? I had the worst contract of anybody on the show.
Oh, no.
I
Favorite
did.
Nations.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't. It wasn't, honey. You were earning way more than me. And I found it.
Earning very much.
No, I know, and I was earning less. Trust me. Yeah.
They lied to us and told it was Favorite Nations.
Yeah, it was
that we were all the same.
yeah, they lie through their teeth. Absolutely lie through their teeth. We were favoured nations when it came to the perks, like the trailers and everything. So after
those were real good.
After the first year when they had us all in shoeboxes, smelly, dirty shoeboxes, they were disgusting. Every time Patrick negotiated himself a better trailer, we all got one. So by the end, we were in these huge mini Winnebagos that we could have lived in. I mean, honestly, they were bigger than some of the apartments that I lived in. They were definitely bigger. The trailer was definitely bigger than Michael Dorn's first apartment. His first apartment would have fit like in this to the windows, you know. So that was what was Favoured Nations. But I was just thrilled to be on the show. So yeah, it's, you know, there's no right or wrong. It's just what your ambition is, you know, and
where you are in your life.
Yeah, where you are in your life. And I just wanted to earn money. That was where I was. Yeah.
If I can, I just want to make a little addendum to what I didn't have to audition because I was just a guest. If I had to audition, if it had been for one of the characters, the regular characters on that show, I would have had to audition. This was simply because it was a one-time shot and a guest. That was it. That's why I didn't audition.
No, it's because you're so good.
Yes, sir.
I was going to say, you were talking about how successful that it was at the time. You kind of kept the studio afloat. How did you feel then about the transition to movies? Would you prefer to stay with the show?
I think we could have done. I think that they really messed up. I really do. I think they thought that DS9 got amazing numbers for the pilot. Amazing numbers. They got something like a 25 share for the pilot, and then it went down, right? And so, but I think they thought that we were somehow diluting the DS9 audience. And so if we went off to make movies, then the DS9 numbers would go up, and of course that didn't happen. So I think we could have done a couple more years. I think really we could have done a couple more years, but we were the last of Gene Roddenberry's children. And you know, I know this is being filmed and it's going to get me in trouble, but I mean, listen, Gene said no to DS9. They presented it to him, and he said, absolutely not. Star Trek is about going out into space. It's not about a hotel in space, right? So when he died, it was like, okay, he's gone, let's do DS9, you know? So, and also because it's all, you know, and Hollywood's about power. It's all about power. Who has the power? And Gene had the power, and that irked the studios. The studio, he wasn't popular at the studio, despite the fact that he made them so much money. Because he was in charge, and they don't like someone else to be in charge. And so as soon as he died, I mean, literally, they locked it, Richard Arnold, who was his assistant, they basically locked him out of Gene's, that day, locked him out of Gene's office and escorted him from the Paramount lot. Security took him off the lot. Yeah, it was brutal. It was very, in fact, I remember the day Gene died was actually the exact same, which is kind of weird, the exact same day that my father had died 10 years earlier. And being as Gene and Rachel had kind of adopted me, you know, I had like I was already kind of sad that day when they came in and said Gene's died. We were just about to shoot my close-up in the scene. Well, I lost it. So now I'm thinking, well, obviously they're going to send us home as a mark of respect. Gene would have wanted us to continue. Gene would have wanted us to continue. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to wait for 2 hours because my face needs major repairs now. We have to wait for the spackle to dry. You know, and it was, yeah, they had to wait because I had lost it. And so they couldn't shoot anything until I was a bit more calm. But yeah, but that's Hollywood for you. You know, it's show business, and the business part is the part that's underlined. Okay? Yeah.
When TNG ended, did you folks run into problems of a role typecasting for your next jobs?
For a little while. For a little while, yeah. I did all the other sci-fi shows for a while. You know, that's what, you're not going to typecast in the part, you're typecasting the genre. Right? So I did Outer Limits, you know, Major Earth Final Conflict, you know, all the other shows that were around at the time I did. So, so you get trapped in a genre, but then, you know, you stick around long enough and, yeah.
Yeah, you fight.
Sorry, you fight a little bit of that, you know, because it's just so much easier, you know, for people to not take risks, not take chances, play the safe bet. You know, they can't think outside of the box. For me, I was fortunate enough when I left the Next Gen, I went into Pet Cemetery. You know, it happened pretty quickly after that, by chance. And so I suddenly was playing, you know, a young mother, you know, with vulnerabilities and things that I didn't get to kind of express. So with Tasha Yar, so it was, you know, I was trying to mix it up a lot. But yeah, you're always sort of, you're always having to prove yourself. You're always asked to prove yourself in some way or another.
My legit agent, when I was talking to Joey Pantaleone about this, we have a thing about 55, the age 55. My legit agent told me they had a commercial audition for me. It was for Cialis. Now listen, I said, no. And then they said, well, we can't work with you anymore.
Oh my God.
That was it. Yeah, that's right, that was it. One of my best friends in New York actually did the commercial. I did, Cialis, I couldn't tell him. I really couldn't, but I'm not going to mention his name. But he was a very good friend of mine, won a Tony Award for Chicago. But Jimmy Nunn, I'll say. He's really a great.
The ones with the they get in the bathtub.
Yes, yeah.
What is the story with
If you have an erection for forearm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I said, no, I'm not going to do this. I said, because this will be the last thing I do, and this is what I'll be, you know, reminded of.
You know, this is, I'm good, an erection for, I'm sorry, an erection before, as my husband said to me, shall I take Viagra? I said, no. I said, 4 hours of sex? I said, that's a part-time job. For 4 hours, I want benefits. Yeah, in fact, I had the same experience. I thought, you know what, I need to earn some more money. You know, that Star Trek money lasted quite a long time, but it was a long time ago. So now it's like, you know, you have to earn money. And I went to a commercial agent, and they said, what won't you do? Right? What won't you do? And I went, okay, I won't do, like, Depends. I won't do, you know, Cialis or Viagra. I won't, basically it was anything, that involved the lower half of the body. And I've never had an audition, ever. Because at our age, that's all there is, right? That's all there is. It's like incontinence and erectile dysfunction. Back when you're middle-aged, that's all that's
And you can't remember any of it.
Yeah.
There's that commercial too, where the elephant sits on the chest, and the old people get
COPD.
CPRs. No, I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, we basically talked our way out of earning any money, both Dwight and I. But I think that's a good place to end, actually. Talking about Viagra and Cialis. God bless everybody.